From his surprisingly delightful role as Captain Sharp in Moonrise Kingdom to the one movie that put him on Hollywood's map and made him an international heartthrob, here are the best movies that defined Bruce Willis's career. Starting with Moonrise Kingdom, Wes Anderson has a knack for creating visual masterpieces that people of all ages can get behind. There's Fantastic Mr. Fox, Isle of Dogs, and of course, his most well-received The Grand Budapest Hotel. But I think Moonrise Kingdom is an underrated gem in an otherwise flawless career. Even though Willis had a supporting role as an approachable and delightful police captain, he fit right in with Anderson's frequent collaborators like Bill Murray, Jason Schwartzman, and of course Edward Norton. I really liked him as Captain Duffy Sharp because he isn't a hard-boiled cop or a loose cannon with too much testosterone. He's just your average Joe police captain who wears his khakis a little too high on his waist and doesn't like to swear. You wouldn't think Bruce would go for a role like that, cause we've always seen him as the no-nonsense, tough-as-nails badass who doesn't like to talk too much. But you'd be wrong. Anderson originally wrote the part thinking of someone like the late James Stewart to play the role, but he later revealed that he wanted Willis to play Captain Sharp because he could portray an iconic policeman with the charm that the script needed. And you know what? I agree. When it comes to sharing a wholesome paternal moment with two lovesick kids, or climbing the rain-soaked roof of a church, or just having fun with the rest of the cast while playing a straight shooter like Duffy Sharp, Willis rose to the occasion and made the charming captain his own. And if you're looking for another movie where he played an unconventional character, then look no further than 1992's Death Becomes Her. Robert Zemeckis didn't win any awards with this satirical black comedy, and critics weren't huge fans of it either, giving it more or less mixed responses. But since then, it's become somewhat of a cult classic that Bruce Willis fans love to watch. It's my own guilty pleasure. The actor flexed his comedy muscles in his role as Dr. Ernest Menville, an alcoholic who's neither the villain nor a good guy, just somewhere in the middle. And his over-the-top screaming and yelling is really fun to watch. In fact, there's an iconic scene with him, Meryl Streep, and Goldie Hawn near the swimming pool that could easily be in a Quentin Tarantino film. It was praised for its cutting-edge visual effects, especially for the year 1992, but most fans just love it for the way Willis bounces off Streep's psychotic character. Give it a watch if you want to switch your brain off for an hour and 45 minutes. You won't regret it. Now, if you're someone who enjoys an R-rated sci-fi with epic set pieces, then the next movie is right up there with Willis's most thought-provoking action flicks. I'm talking about Looper, which is one of Rian Johnson's best works, on par with Knives Out in terms of quality and emotional weight. When Looper hit theaters back in 2012, almost everyone was raving about Joseph Gordon-Levitt's uncanny portrayal of Bruce Willis's character. He imitated his mannerisms and voice so well that I was amazed he didn't win an Oscar for it. But it also brought out a side of Willis fans had rarely seen before. He wasn't an indestructible protagonist anymore who could survive anything and come out unscathed. He was just an old man trying to break the cycle of violence he's been stuck in for decades. The diner scene where old Joe finally meets young Joe was superb. Johnson's screenplay really elevated itself there, and Willis was so good that you can't tell what he's willing to do and when. And the story that Rian had set out for old Joe meant that he didn't have to get too physical with the role either. It's a genuinely great sci-fi thriller, but that's not the only sci-fi thriller where Willis knocked it out of the park. 12 Monkeys, directed by art house filmmaker Terry Gilliam. I know that fans on Reddit would rather pick The Fifth Element or Armageddon instead of 12 Monkeys, mostly because The Fifth Element is more fun, and Armageddon features Michael Bay's trademark explosions and action set pieces. But 12 Monkeys is something special. Willis stars as James Cole, a prisoner who's sent back in time to find the origin of a virus, is arguably the scene stealer here. Plus, Going back in time to find the origin of a killer virus seems fitting for this list, since we're living in a post-pandemic reality right now. So that's the second reason why I chose 12 Monkeys over the others. But the movie also features something you don't usually find in most of Willis's movies: actual romantic chemistry with a co-star. The romance plot works alongside the high-stakes race to find the virus's origin, and things get pretty strange as the movie progresses. Not in a bad way, but in a way that makes you scratch your head and go, "I've never seen anything like it," and I love it. It has a wonderful edge to it and deserves a solid 8 out of 10. But now we're heading into the big leagues. Each movie I'll mention from here on out deserves a solid 10 by 10. Why? Because these next movies became as iconic as the man himself. First is The Sixth Sense. The line, "I see dead people," deserves its own place in the Hall of Fame.
I see dead people.
Haley Joel Osment plays Cole Sear, a kid who's haunted by ghosts, but is otherwise a really sweet boy. He meets Willis's character, Malcolm Crowe, and then the movie takes you on a strange journey, hitting you with one twist after another. It culminates in a final plot twist that now shows up on everyone's top 10 lists, and it deserves the hype it gets. But more importantly, Willis literally reinvented himself with this role. Back in 1999, he was still typecast as a tough, cynical protagonist or anti-hero. But then M. Night Shyamalan had the brilliant idea to cast him as a child psychologist and asked him to pull out every trick in the book to make his performance as nuanced as possible. He couldn't rely on bulging muscles or slick dialogue. So did he fail? Not a chance. His performance was heartfelt, subtle, and most of all, relatable. And I have to give props to Shyamalan for creating an extraordinary script too. The director had a vision, and Willis brought it to life. And finally, the one movie that put Willis on the map of Hollywood. You know what's coming, don't you? Die Hard. As if this wasn't going to be my top choice. There are honorable mentions though, mainly Unbreakable and Pulp Fiction, which are some of my favorite movies by Shyamalan and Tarantino respectively. But Die Hard can't be beaten. It's the perfect action movie, period. And I'm bunching in Die Hard 2 and Die Hard with a Vengeance with it too, because they're fun action-packed sequels. But the first one deserves all the accolades. It's the movie that turned Willis from a nobody into one of the highest-grossing actors of his time. John McClane was an unlikely hero, a regular NYPD police officer who's in way over his head. And what makes it even better is that Willis had never been in an action-oriented movie before this. Most of what he'd done had been either supporting roles or ones where he was just an extra. So for him to play McClane the way he did and utter the iconic line, "Yippee-ki-yay, mother,"
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
put Die Hard on the top of everyone's top 10 lists back in 1988. And it still is to this day. And that's all I have on Bruce Willis's best movies ever.